Commander Jack Harper stood on the bridge of the Odyssey staring at the vast emptiness of space through the large viewport. The ship was quiet, save for the soft hum of its systems and the occasional beep of instruments. It was a calm that felt almost unnatural, given what they were about to face. Moments earlier, a transmission from Deep Space Station Alpha 7 had arrived, carrying news that sent chills down everyone's spine. The Draconian fleet, a massive armada feared across the galaxy, had vanished without a trace. Jack turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Emily Carter, who stood nearby with her tablet in hand. Her brow was furrowed as she reviewed the data sent by the station. "What do you think?" he asked, his voice steady but tinged with concern. Emily hesitated before answering. "It doesn't make sense, sir. A fleet that size doesn't just disappear. There's no wreckage, no debris, no sign of battle. It's like they were wiped clean off the map." Jack nodded slowly. He knew the implications of this mystery all too well. The Draconians weren't allies, but their presence had kept an uneasy balance in the galaxy. If something, or someone, could erase them so completely, then Earth might be next. "We need to investigate," he said firmly. "Get the crew ready. We leave within the hour." As preparations began, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of unease growing in his chest. He walked over to the communications console and contacted headquarters. On the screen appeared Dr. Laura Bennett, a brilliant xenobiologist known for her work on alien artifacts. Jack quickly filled her in on the situation. Laura listened intently, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly as she processed the information. "There's more to this than meets the eye," she said after a moment. "The last readings from Alpha 7 show unusual energy spikes right before the fleet disappeared. I'm analyzing them now, but it looks like some kind of spatial anomaly. A tear in the fabric of space-time, perhaps." "A tear," Jack echoed, frowning. That didn't sound good. Such phenomena were rare and usually catastrophic. Could it have been caused by the Draconians themselves? "It's possible," Laura replied. "Their technology is far beyond ours. But if they're gone..." She trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. Whatever had taken down the Draconians, it was powerful enough to leave no trace behind. Back on the bridge, Chief Engineer Ryan Scott approached Jack, his expression grim. "Sir, I've run diagnostics on the engines and shields. We're as ready as we'll ever be, but I won't lie. This feels risky. We don't know what we're walking into." "I know," Jack said, meeting Ryan's gaze. "But we can't ignore this. If there's even a chance the Draconians were taken out by something bigger, we need to find out why, and how to stop it." The crew worked quickly, each person focused on their task. In the background, Daniel Hayes, one of the younger members of the team, seemed unusually quiet. Normally cheerful and talkative, he now stared out into space with a distant look in his eyes. When Jack noticed, he called him over. "You okay, Daniel?" Jack asked. Daniel blinked, snapping out of his thoughts. "Yeah, sir. Just thinking. Do you ever wonder if we're really alone out here, or if there's something watching us, waiting?" Jack studied him for a moment. "We'll find out soon enough," he said finally. "Let's hope whatever's out there isn't looking to start trouble." As the Odyssey prepared to jump to the coordinates where the Draconian fleet had last been seen, the tension aboard the ship was palpable. No one spoke much, each lost in their own thoughts. The unknown loomed ahead like a dark cloud, and Jack couldn't help but wonder if they were heading toward answers or straight into danger. When the ship reached its destination, the view outside the viewport was eerily silent. Stars twinkled in the distance, but there was nothing else. No ships, no movement, no signs of life. It was as though the Draconians had never existed. But deep down, Jack knew better. Something had happened here, and whatever it wasn't finished yet. The Odyssey drifted silently in the cold emptiness of space, its sensors scanning every inch of the area where the Draconian fleet had last been detected. Commander Jack Harper stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen as streams of data scrolled past. So far, there was nothing unusual, just the endless void of stars and silence. But something had to be here. The Draconians didn't just vanish into thin air. Lieutenant Emily Carter adjusted the settings on her tablet, trying to refine the scans. "Sir, I'm picking up faint energy signatures," she said, her voice tinged with both excitement and caution. "They're weak, but they're definitely not natural." Jack nodded. Focus on those readings. Whatever took out the Draconians might still be lurking around. He turned to Chief Engineer Ryan Scott. "Ryan, how are the ship's systems holding up?" "Everything's stable for now," Ryan replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "But if we run into anything big, we'll need to act fast. These engines weren't built for whatever weirdness is going on out here." As the crew worked, Daniel Hayes approached the viewport, staring out at the seemingly empty expanse. His face was pale, and his hands trembled slightly. "Do you feel that?" he asked softly, almost to himself. Jack frowned. "Feel what, Daniel?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "It's like something's watching us. Out there." He pointed toward the darkness beyond the ship. "I can't explain it, but it's there." Before Jack could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. The ship shuddered violently, throwing several crew members off balance. Emily clung to her console, her eyes wide. "Commander, we've got movement outside the ship." "What kind of movement?" Jack demanded, gripping the edge of the command chair. "I don't know," Emily shouted back, frantically adjusting the sensors. "It's not registering as solid objects, but wait. There." She pointed to the screen, where shadowy shapes flickered briefly before disappearing again. They were humanoid but distorted, their forms shifting unnaturally. Ryan cursed under his breath. "That's impossible. Nothing should be able to move out there without life support or suits." Dr. Laura Bennett's voice crackled over the comm system. "Jack, I'm seeing the same anomalies from my end. Those shapes, they're tied to the energy spikes I mentioned earlier. Whatever this is, it's manipulating space-time itself." Jack clenched his jaw. "Can we get a closer look?" Emily hesitated. "We could send out a probe, but, sir, I don't think that's wise. If these things are dangerous." "We don't have a choice," Jack interrupted. "If we want answers, we need to take risks. Prep a probe and launch it as soon as possible." Minutes later, the small drone shot out from the Odyssey *, its cameras transmitting live footage back to the ship. At first, all it showed was the same dark emptiness. Then suddenly, the shadows reappeared, surrounding the probe. The feed began to glitch, static filling the screens as the crew watched in stunned silence. Daniel gasped, pointing at one of the monitors. "There. Did you see that? It looked right at me." Sure enough, one of the shadowy figures had paused, its head tilting as if studying the probe, and perhaps the ship behind it. Before anyone could react, the probe was pulled apart by an unseen force, its signal cutting out completely. The bridge fell silent. Jack broke the tension. "All right, people, let's stay calm. Whatever this is, it knows we're here now." "Ryan, reinforce the shields. Emily, keep scanning for any patterns in those energy spikes." Laura's voice came through again, urgent this time. "Jack, listen carefully. Based on the readings, I think we're dealing with some kind of dimensional rift, a gateway to another plane of existence. If we go near it, we risk getting trapped, or worse." Jack glanced at the crew, then back at the viewport. "We didn't come this far to turn back now," he said firmly. "Set a course for the source of the energy spikes. Let's find out what's really going on." As the Odyssey moved forward, the shadows seemed to grow more active, swirling around the ship like predators circling their prey. Daniel muttered under his breath, clutching his arms tightly. Emily exchanged worried glances with Ryan, while Jack remained focused, his expression unreadable. When they reached the heart of the anomaly, The sight before them was breathtaking yet terrifying. A massive black void stretched endlessly ahead, its edges shimmering with faint otherworldly light. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. "This is it," Jack whispered. "Whatever destroyed the Draconians, it's waiting inside." No one spoke as the ship hovered at the edge of the abyss. For a moment, it felt as though the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, without warning, the void began to pull them in, dragging the Odyssey toward its center despite the engines straining against it. "Hold on," Jack yelled as the ship lurched forward, plunging into the unknown. The Odyssey emerged from the void into a world unlike anything the crew had ever seen. The sky above was a swirling mix of colors, blues, purples, and golds that shifted and danced as if alive. Strange structures floated in the distance, glowing faintly with an inner light. They looked like ancient ruins, but their design was far too advanced to belong to any known civilization. Commander Jack Harper stood frozen on the bridge, his eyes wide as he took in the surreal landscape. "Where are we?" he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Lieutenant Emily Carter adjusted her console, scanning the area. "I'm reading stable atmospheric conditions," she reported. "It's breathable, but there's something off about it. The air feels charged like static electricity." Chief Engineer Ryan Scott shook his head in disbelief. "This can't be real. It's like we've stepped into another dimension." Daniel Hayes, who had been unusually quiet since entering the void, suddenly spoke up. His voice was shaky but urgent. "We shouldn't be here. This place, it's wrong. It doesn't want us." Jack turned to him. "What do you mean, Daniel?" "I don't know how to explain it," Daniel replied, his hands trembling. "But I feel it. This place is alive, and it knows we're here." Ignoring Daniel's warning for now, Jack ordered the crew to prepare for an away mission. They needed answers, and staying aboard the Odyssey wasn't going to get them any closer to finding out what had happened to the Draconian fleet. The team landed on a nearby planetoid, its surface littered with the remains of ships. As they stepped onto the ground, the first thing they noticed was the silence. There was no wind, no sound of movement, just an eerie stillness that made their footsteps echo unnaturally loud. Emily knelt beside one of the wrecked vessels, running her scanner over it. "These are definitely Draconian," she said, her voice filled with awe. "But look at this." She pointed to the ship's hull, where deep cracks radiated outward like frozen lightning. "It's like time stopped for them. Everything's preserved exactly as it was when, whatever this has happened." As they explored further, they discovered crystalline artifacts scattered among the wreckage. The crystals pulsed faintly with a soft, rhythmic glow, almost like they were breathing. Jack picked one up cautiously, turning it over in his hand. "What are these things?" he asked, holding it out for Emily to examine. Before she could answer, Daniel let out a sharp gasp. He stumbled backward, clutching his head. "No, no, no," he cried, his face pale and sweating. "Put it down. Don't touch it." Jack dropped the crystal immediately, startled by Daniel's reaction. "What's wrong with him?" he demanded, looking at Emily. "I don't know," Emily admitted, kneeling beside Daniel. She placed a hand on his shoulder, trying to calm him. "Daniel, talk to me. What did you see?" Daniel's breathing slowed as he struggled to regain control. "It showed me something," he whispered hoarsely. "A vision. Earth, but not our Earth. It was older, wilder. And there were creatures, beings. They weren't human, but they were connected to us somehow." Dr. Laura Bennett's voice crackled through their comms. "Jack, those crystals, they're not just objects. They're storing information, maybe even memories. If you bring one back to the ship, I might be able to analyze it." Reluctantly, Jack agreed. He carefully wrapped the crystal in a protective casing and handed it to Emily. "Let's get this back to the Odyssey. We've seen enough for now." As they made their way back to the ship, The crew couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Shadows flitted at the edges of their vision, vanishing whenever they turned to look. Even Ryan, usually unflappable, kept glancing over his shoulder. Once aboard the Odyssey Dr. Bennett wasted no time examining the crystal. Her expression grew increasingly grave as she sifted through the data it contained. Finally, she looked up at Jack, her face pale. "You need to hear this," she said quietly. "What I found changes everything." Jack leaned forward, bracing himself. "Tell me." "The crystals hold records of an ancient civilization," Laura explained. "One that existed millions of years ago, and it originated on Earth. These beings created the Draconians as weapons, bioengineered soldiers designed to protect them from some kind of threat. But something went wrong. Their own creations turned against them, wiping them out completely." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, but neither was it unique. And now, whatever had destroyed the Draconians' creators might be coming for Earth next. Back aboard the Odyssey the crew gathered in the briefing room, their faces tense as Dr. Laura Bennett projected holographic images of the crystal's data onto the central table. The glowing patterns swirled and shifted, revealing fragments of history from an age long forgotten. Emily Carter leaned closer, her eyes wide as she studied the images. This is Earth," she whispered. "But it's not the Earth we know." Laura nodded. "That's right. These records show that millions of years ago, Earth was home to a highly advanced civilization, one far older and more powerful than anything humanity has achieved today." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "And they created the Draconians." Jack Harper rubbed his temples, trying to process the enormity of what they were learning. So the Draconians weren't just another alien race. They were made by these ancient beings. Why would anyone create something so dangerous? "It wasn't supposed to end like this," Laura replied. "According to the data, the Draconians were originally designed as protectors. Their creators faced some kind of existential threat, something so catastrophic that they needed warriors capable of defending them at all costs." She pointed to a series of jagged symbols on the hologram. But then something went wrong. The exact details are unclear, but it seems the Draconians turned on their creators, destroying them completely. Ryan Scott shook his head, his voice low. "So they wiped out their own makers, and now they're gone too. Whatever did this, it's cleaning house." Daniel Hayes sat quietly in the corner, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His face was pale, and he avoided meeting anyone's gaze. When Jack noticed him, he frowned. "Daniel, you've been quiet. Do you have anything to add?" Daniel hesitated before speaking. "The Watchers," he said softly. "They told me about this, about how everything ends the same way." "The Watchers?" Emily asked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Daniel's hands trembled as he spoke. "In my visions, I saw them. They're always there, watching, waiting. They feed on civilizations, taking them apart piece by piece until there's nothing left. That's what happened to the Draconians, and that's what will happen to us if we don't stop it." The room fell silent as everyone processed Daniel's words. Jack studied him carefully. "You think these Watchers are behind all this? Behind the void, the crystals, everything?" "I don't think," Daniel said, his voice rising slightly. "I know. They showed me. They're inside the void, pulling things in, consuming them. And once they've taken everything they need, they move on to the next target." Laura looked troubled. "If Daniel's right, and I'm starting to believe he might be, we're dealing with something beyond our understanding. Something that preys on intelligent life." Jack stood up, pacing slowly as he thought. "Then we need to figure out how to fight it, or at least how to survive it. We can't let Earth become their next meal." Emily glanced at the crystal still sitting on the table. "There might be clues in here. If we can decode more of the data, maybe we'll find a way to stop them." Laura nodded. "I'll keep working on it, but it won't be easy. This technology is unlike anything we've encountered before. It could take days or weeks to unravel its secrets. As the discussion continued, Daniel suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "There's no time," he said firmly. "The Watchers are already moving. We have to act now, or it'll be too late." Jack turned to him, his expression serious. "What do you suggest we do?" Daniel hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small shard of crystal, the one he had secretly taken from the planetoid. He held it out toward Jack. "This holds the key. The Watchers showed me how to use it. If we go back into the void, I can guide us through. But someone has to stay behind to make sure the others get out alive." The room grew deathly quiet. Ryan broke the silence first. "Are you saying what I think you're saying? You want to sacrifice yourself?" Daniel didn't answer directly. Instead, he looked at each of them in turn, his eyes filled with determination. "We came here for answers, and now we have them. But knowing isn't enough. We have to act. And if staying behind is what it takes to save Earth, then I'll do it." Jack stared at him for a long moment, torn between admiration and disbelief. Finally, he sighed. "All right, let's prepare for one last mission. But Daniel," he added, his voice firm, "we're not leaving without a fight. Not yet." As the crew dispersed to ready the ship, Daniel stayed behind, staring at the shard in his hand. For the first time since entering the void, he felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened next, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. The Odyssey hovered at the edge of the void once more, its engines humming softly as the crew prepared for what might be their final mission. Commander Jack Harper stood on the bridge, his expression grim but resolute. He glanced at Daniel Hayes, who was standing quietly near the viewport, clutching the crystal shard tightly in his hand. The young man's face was pale, but there was a strange calmness about him now, as if he had accepted his fate. Lieutenant Emily Carter adjusted the ship's systems one last time, her hands moving quickly over the controls. "Shields are at maximum capacity," she reported. "But I can't guarantee they'll hold if we go deeper into the void." "We don't have a choice," Jack said firmly. "If Daniel's right, and the Watchers are behind all this, then we need to stop them before they come for Earth." Chief Engineer Ryan Scott approached, his usual confidence replaced by unease. "I've rerouted all available power to the fusion core," he said. "If we overload it inside the void, it should create enough energy to collapse the anomaly. But someone has to stay behind to trigger the detonation sequence manually." Daniel stepped forward without hesitation. "That's me," he said simply. His voice was steady, though his hands trembled slightly around the shard. "I've seen how the Watchers work. I know how to guide you through the void. And if staying behind is what it takes, then that's what I'll do." Jack wanted to argue, to tell Daniel there had to be another way. But deep down, he knew the young man was right. They didn't have time to come up with a safer plan. "All right," Jack said finally, his voice heavy with regret. "But you'll have backup until the last possible moment. We're not leaving you alone until we absolutely have to." The crew worked quickly, preparing the ship for the dangerous journey ahead. As they entered the void, the familiar swirling colors surrounded them, pulsating with an eerie rhythm. The shadows that had haunted them before returned, flickering at the edges of their vision. This time, however, they seemed more active, almost agitated, as if sensing the intrusion. Daniel led the way, holding the shard up like a compass. Its glow intensified as they moved deeper into the void, guiding them toward the heart of the anomaly. "This way," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're close." Suddenly, the ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Alarms blared as the sensors detected massive energy surges nearby. On the main screen, a towering figure began to take shape, a being made entirely of shifting light and shadow, its form constantly changing. It loomed over the Odyssey, radiating an overwhelming sense of malice. That's one of the Watchers, Daniel said, his voice trembling but determined. It knows we're here. Can we fight it? Emily asked, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to stabilize the ship. No, Daniel replied, not directly. But we can use the fusion core to destroy the void, and hopefully trap it inside. Jack nodded. Ryan, get down to engineering and start the overload sequence. Emily, keep us steady. Daniel, you're with me. We're going to set the charges manually. As Ryan rushed off to begin the process, Jack and Daniel made their way to the lower deck, where the fusion core was located. The air grew colder the deeper they went, and the shadows thickened, pressing in on them from all sides. Daniel clutched the shard tighter, its light casting faint, flickering beams against the walls. When they reached the core, Jack handed Daniel a small device. This will trigger the overload when you're ready. Wait until the rest of us are clear, then activate it. Do you understand? Daniel nodded, though his face was pale. I understand. Before leaving, Jack placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You don't have to do this alone. If there's any way we can pull you out. There isn't, Daniel interrupted gently. And you know it. Just make sure the others get out safe. Reluctantly, Jack turned and left, joining Emily and Ryan as they prepared to evacuate. Back in the control room, the team watched anxiously as the countdown began. On the screen, the Watcher grew larger, its presence filling the void with an oppressive weight. Finally, Daniel's voice crackled over the comms. It's done, he said quietly. Get out of here. The Odyssey surged forward, racing toward the edge of the void as the fusion core reached critical levels. Behind them, the anomaly began to collapse, the swirling colors folding in on themselves. A deafening roar filled the void as the Watcher let out a final, ear-splitting scream. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything went silent. The void imploded, disappearing completely. The Odyssey emerged back into normal space, battered but intact. On the bridge, the crew sat in stunned silence. Emily wiped tears from her eyes, while Ryan stared blankly at the empty expanse, where the void had been. Jack stood motionless, his fists clenched tightly. Daniel Hayes was gone, but his sacrifice had saved them all. The Odyssey returned to Earth under a sky heavy with clouds, its arrival marked by an eerie silence. The crew disembarked slowly, their faces pale and drawn from the ordeal they had endured. Commander Jack Harper led them into the United Nations Security Council chamber, where representatives from every nation waited anxiously for answers. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet and the mysterious void had sent shockwaves across the globe, and humanity needed to know what had happened. Jack stood at the podium, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. We found the truth, he began, but it's not what we expected. He nodded to Dr. Laura Bennett, who stepped forward with a small crystal fragment in her hand. Its faint glow illuminated her face as she held it up for everyone to see. This is part of an ancient artifact left behind by a civilization that existed millions of years ago, Laura explained. They were the first intelligent beings on Earth, our ancestors in a way. But they weren't human. They created the Draconians as bioengineered warriors to protect themselves from a threat they couldn't defeat. Murmurs spread through the room as the implications sank in. One council member leaned forward, his expression incredulous. You're saying, humans aren't alone in the universe because we inherited this planet from someone else. Laura nodded. That's exactly what I'm saying. This civilization was far more advanced than us, but they made a mistake. Their own creations turned against them, wiping them out completely. And now, whatever destroyed them has taken the Draconians too. Emily Carter stepped forward next, her tablet displaying holographic images of the void and the Watchers. Before we destroyed the anomaly, Daniel Hayes, our teammate, saw visions of these entities. He called them Watchers. They feed on civilizations, consuming them until there's nothing left. That's why the Draconians vanished, and why we almost didn't make it out alive." The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled over everyone. Humanity wasn't just facing an alien threat. It was confronting something much older, much darker. Something that had been watching and waiting for millions of years. Dr. Bennett continued, her tone grave. "Daniel sacrificed himself to stop the Watchers, at least for now. But the crystals contain more information, warnings about other sites like the one we found. If we don't learn from them, the Watchers will come for us next." As the meeting ended, Jack walked outside, staring up at the gray sky. The burden of leadership felt heavier than ever. Emily joined him, holding the crystal shard Daniel had given her before the mission. "Do you think we'll be ready?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Jack admitted, "but we have to try. For Daniel, and for everyone else who's counting on us." Back in her lab, Dr. Bennett worked tirelessly to decode the remaining data in the crystal. As she analyzed the fragments, she uncovered hints of other ancient locations scattered across the galaxy. Each one seemed to hold pieces of the puzzle, clues about how to fight the Watchers, or at the very least, survive them. Meanwhile, news of humanity's true origins sparked debates worldwide. Some saw it as proof of their superiority, arguing that they were destined to inherit the legacy of the ancient civilization. Others feared the revelation would divide humanity further, leaving them vulnerable to external threats. Jack spent his days preparing for the next mission. The Odyssey would launch again soon, this time with a larger crew and better equipment. They needed to explore the remnants of the ancient civilization, to uncover whatever secrets might help them prepare for the Watchers' return. At night, though, when the work was done and the crowds had dispersed, Jack allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought about Daniel, the young man who had faced unimaginable fear and still chosen to stand his ground. His sacrifice hadn't just saved the crew, it had given humanity a fighting chance. As the sun broke through the clouds one morning, casting golden light over the earth, Jack felt a flicker of hope. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was resilient. And if they could learn from the mistakes of those who came before, maybe, just maybe, they could avoid the same fate. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, Jack felt ready to face it. Months had passed since the Odyssey returned from the void, and humanity was still grappling with the revelations about its past. The truth of Earth's ancient civilization and the Watchers weighed heavily on everyone's minds. For Commander Jack Harper, however, there was no time to dwell on what had happened. The next mission was already underway, and the stakes were higher than ever. The Odyssey stood ready on the launch pad, its sleek hull gleaming under the morning sun. This time, the ship carried not just a crew of explorers, but also scientists, engineers, and historians, all united by a single purpose: to uncover the secrets of the ancient civilization before it was too late. Emily Carter stood beside Jack, her tablet filled with data from the crystal shard Daniel had left behind. "We've mapped out several locations based on the information," she said. "If we're lucky, one of them will hold answers about how to fight the Watchers." Jack nodded, his expression determined. "Let's hope so. We can't afford any more surprises." As the ship launched into orbit, the crew worked together seamlessly, their earlier fears replaced by a shared sense of purpose. They knew the risks, but they also knew what was at stake. Humanity's survival depended on them. Their first destination was a distant planetoid, marked by strange energy readings similar to those found near the void. When they arrived, the surface was eerily familiar. Glowing ruins stretched as far as the eye could see, their intricate designs hinting at a technology far beyond modern understanding. Dr. Laura Bennett led the team onto the ground, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible," she murmured, running her fingers over the smooth metallic walls of a crumbling structure. "Every piece of this place tells a story." Inside, they discovered murals depicting scenes of the ancient civilization, their rise, their creation of the Draconians, and ultimately, their downfall. But there was something else too. warnings etched into the walls and symbols that glowed faintly when touched. Emily carefully photographed each one, her hands trembling slightly as she realized their significance. "These aren't just records," she said. "They're instructions, ways to protect ourselves from the Watchers." Back aboard the Odyssey the team worked tirelessly to decode the symbols. Slowly but surely, a plan began to take shape. The ancient civilization hadn't been entirely defenseless. They had developed ways to shield themselves from the Watchers' influence, though none had been enough to save them in the end. Armed with this knowledge, the crew modified the ship's systems, creating barriers designed to repel the Watchers' energy. But as they prepared to leave the planetoid, an unexpected discovery changed everything. Deep within the ruins, they found a chamber containing a large intact crystal, unlike anything they'd seen before. Its glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. When Emily placed her hand on it, she gasped, overwhelmed by a flood of images, visions of Earth's future, teeming with life and progress, but also shadowed by the looming threat of the Watchers. Jack approached her cautiously. "What did you see?" "It's a message," Emily replied, her voice shaking. "From the ancients. They knew they couldn't win, but they hoped someone would come after them. Someone who could finish what they started." The realization hit them all at once. Humanity wasn't just fighting for itself, it was carrying the torch of a long-lost legacy. The Watchers might be powerful, but they weren't invincible. With determination burning in their hearts, the crew set course for the next site, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the Odyssey disappeared into the stars, Jack stood on the bridge, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. He thought of Daniel, whose sacrifice had given them this chance. Though the road ahead was uncertain, he felt a quiet confidence. Humanity had faced extinction before and survived. With courage, ingenuity, and unity, they would do so again. For now, the Watchers remained silent, lurking in the shadows. But Jack knew they would return, and when they did, humanity would be ready.